Good afternoon, and welcome to Chris 180's Lunchtime Live series. I'm Chandra Luckett, Chief Marketing Officer, and we're excited that you spent yet another workday, lunchtime, afternoon with us here at Chris 180. Pride Month is normally celebrated during the summer, but here in Atlanta, we celebrate Pride Month in the month of October. And that's a time when we celebrate, empower, and work to uplift members of the LGBTQIA plus community. But that acceptance and often building safe and inclusive environments starts with all of us. So how do we build those community safe spaces? Today, our experts will talk a little bit through how each one of us can be a part of the conversation to make people feel warm, welcome, and always invited to sit at our community table. Our experts today are Rita Mathis, a clinical supervisor and therapist at Chris Counseling Center DeKalb, and Keisha Teasley, a therapist at our drop-in center here at Chris 180. Take the conversation away, ladies.
So my name is Rita Mathis, like she said, and I am a clinical supervisor and therapist here at Chris 180.
And my name is Keisha Teasley. I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist at Chris 180's the drop-in center. And there I work with people who are experiencing homelessness from ages 16 to 26.
So this is a really interesting conversation to have today, to start to think about the mental health impact of people in the LGBTQ plus community. And when I think about that and I look at the people that we serve, especially our youth, they are impacted by high incidences of suicidal ideation because they're not accepted. They may have some depression and some anxiety. And one of the things that really impact that is the acceptance of their family. So we work with people who their parents have, for whatever reason, not accepted them. And as a result, they end up, in the streets. And they struggle. As a result, they have anxiety and depression. And they often sometimes will turn to substance abuse as a way to cope.
Yes, and I can definitely speak to that. A lot of the clients that I work with at the drop-in center are on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And a main reason why a lot of them are experiencing homelessness right now is because their parents kicked them out because they came out to their parents, or maybe their parents don't respect their gender identity or gender or sexual orientation. And so they're just forced to be homeless. And that's very unfortunate because especially at a young age, when you get kicked out of the house when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you can't go to school because you're experiencing homelessness. It's like, where am I going to get food? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, it leads to for them to have survival sex.
Right.
And survival sex is basically when you have to, well, not have to, but you're having sex to survive in the world. You're having sex to get money, to get food, or maybe staying in a hotel or an Airbnb for just a couple of days. And so it's really a challenge for our young people. And like she said, like it brings on a whole lot of other things because they do turn to substances to help cope with having to have survival sex or just experiencing homelessness in general.
And also speaking to the impact of not having acceptance from your family members, thinking about this in terms of these are the people who are supposed to love you and supposed to accept you. And so if you don't have that acceptance, then you start to question who you are as a human being. And you start to have depression related to just who am I? And so that family acceptance is really important. I was working with a client whose mother had her make the choice. Either you're going to be gay, not be gay, or you're going to leave my house. So, of course, she can't deny who she is. So the mother put her out. And literally, if we follow her progression from my mother put me out, I end up in the streets. As a result of that, I end up in sex trade. And all the mental health effects of that takes them on a trajectory that sometimes can even end up in taking their life or ended up being killed as a result of being in the streets.
Mm-hmm. And I have a client kind of similar, have a client who is a transgender male, and to get assistance from their families, when they do go back home, they have to dress like a female. They have to use their name that they were assigned at birth instead of the name that they choose to use, which is a male name, just so that they can get assistance from their own families because their family doesn't accept the fact that they are a transgender male. And that's unfortunate. And that same client has had to be a female to do the survival sex in order to get housing or get food or get money, even though they don't identify with that. And I think it kind of goes to like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like when I see some of the young people come into the drop-in center, it's like I'm trying to, push mental health, but they're like, no, I need food, I need water, I need shelter. I don't care about my mental health at this point, even though that part is so important. That's not what's on their minds.
Yeah. And another area that a lot of our young people struggle with is even at school, being bullied for being gay and not having that safe space. That also impacts their mental health. So they're not safe at home to be who they are, and they're not safe at school to be who they are. So just imagine being in these places and trying to survive and having to constantly check your sexuality, and that has an impact on them after a while. So definitely over time, it can lead them to just wanting to even take their own life.
Yeah. And I think too, like a couple of years ago, I was an interventionist in high schools in Miami. And it was a really nice change to see with the newer generation, the acceptance of people who are on the LGBTQIA spectrum. Because I remember when I was in high school, that was just not a thing. I remember people getting bullied and getting beat up just because of who they liked or what pronoun they wanted to be called.
And speaking of pronouns, I think that that's really important to talk about, along with acceptance, being willing to honor how people want to be identified. At Chris 180, I think one of the things that's really wonderful is we give people the opportunity to let us know how they want to be identified. And I think that's really important in that acceptance. That's going to help them to feel better about themselves. And ultimately, it can help with their mental health.
Yes. I know one of the things that we have at the drop-in center, every time a client comes in for the day, they have to fill out like a form. And on that form, it says, what is your name? What is your preferred name? And then, what gender pronoun would you like to be identified as? So that everybody in the space at the spot, we know, to use the appropriate pronoun so that you can feel comfortable, so that we can create that safe space for you. And even in the therapy room, sometimes I may slip up, or even other staff members may slip up, and we immediately, I apologize and we correct ourselves. And I think, everybody's learning how to be more inclusive and be appropriate when we're talking to people who use they as a pronoun, because growing up, we use they as a plural pronoun. We're not used to they being a singular pronoun talking about one person. And so we are all on this journey to be more inclusive and be more appropriate.
And just having that willingness to be open like that can help the client to feel more safer in the therapy room, in the buildings that they're having to go to, if they understand and realize that this place is going to be aware of gender identity. They're going to be aware of pronouns. In our documentation, and so I might have a client who comes in and the given name might have been Janet, but they said, I want to be called Jay. So we have to honor that as a part of their treatment, and creating that safe space for when they come into this space, they know that they're going to be accepted for who they are. And that's just so important in helping them to maintain mental health and not go down that line of ending up wanting to hurt themselves.
Yeah. I think we have a question.
Yes. So this person asks, if you use a person's wrong pronouns by mistake, what do you do? How do you rectify the situation?
Well, like she was saying, we're all on that journey together to learn So I would just ask, just apologize and then ask them how would you want to be identified? What pronoun would be helpful? So, and just opening that up for a conversation.
Yeah, I would say that. And then sometimes the person will correct you.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, oh, I'm sorry. And then you just proceed to use the pronoun that they want to be identified as.
Yeah.
So as a follow-up to that, what would you all say about using pronouns in the workplace to build those inclusive communities? How would you suggest people who may have concerns about making sure they're identified correctly at work go about asking for those things?
Well, in the workplace, on our emails, we could say, I prefer to be identified as him, or he, him, or she, her. So just sort of putting it out there that way could be helpful. So people know when they email you how you want to be identified.
Yeah, and I know at the drop-in center, now that we're in October and we're in Pride Month for Atlanta, we actually got some pins made, and they say she, him, her, and they. And so they're free for the clients to take, they're free for the staff members to take, or anybody that comes into the drop-in center. And you can just wear your button so that people know how to identify you.
And I think it's also to be mindful of not making assumptions about like Mr. and Mrs., automatically assuming, like if a couple is married, automatically assuming that it's a man or a woman.
Yes.
So being mindful of those kinds of things as well.
Yes. And I know, like, even in sessions when I'm talking with clients and we're talking about relationships, I make it a point to say partner and not wife or a husband. Even I feel like, and I've even incorporated that into my daily life when I'm talking to friends and family. I don't say my boyfriend a lot of the times. I say my partner. So it's like the more I use the language with my clients and at work, it just becomes like a habit. We're building habits at this point.
And helping people. It's like we were talking about at Chris 180, sometimes we exist in a bubble. So because we are always thinking about it and mindful of it, but really working to step outside that bubble and help other people to understand and to become more aware of the things that we're talking about.
And also, if you see somebody, referring to somebody with the wrong pronoun, like if we're having a conversation about a client and you make a mistake and you call a client that I know, refers to themselves as he, but you say she, me being an advocate, like I want to make sure that I say, hey, that client doesn't go by that pronoun. You should use the pronoun that they go by. And so that also like builds a safe space, even when the clients aren't there.
And another way that Chris 180 is creating safe space, and I really love, is our gender neutral bathrooms. So you choose the bathroom that you want to go in, and it's not based on gender. And I think that ultimately helps people to feel safe as well.
Yeah.
What about those who may be misgendered? How have you all seen that evolve over time?
Could you say more about that?
Often people may see themselves as a man or a woman, but people in their lives may say, well, no, you don't appear that way, or you look like a man, so I'm going to refer to you as a man, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think with like society, like we have this idea of like what's quote unquote masculine and what's feminine. And I just breaking those habits, because gender is fluid, gender is a spectrum, it's not black and white, it's not set in stone. One of my clients actually told me, some days I feel more feminine or some days I feel more masculine, but just because I have on a dress doesn't mean that that day I feel more feminine, because that my client doesn't believe that clothes have gender. Clothes are just supposed to protect me, protect my skin and protect my body. They don't speak to what pronoun I want to go by.
Right. And again, all of that is designed to help people feel safe and accepted, which is going to ultimately help them with their mental health as well.
So we just got another question, and this person asked, how do I as a friend or family member respond or support people when they come out?
Well, one of the things that we talk about is just that openness and that willingness to listen, and being able to kind of be aware of your own biases or your own thoughts, processes about it. But I think the most important thing is just that openness and that willingness to hear and to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because you don't have to understand a person's lifestyle. You don't have to understand, you know, a person's gender or sexual orientation. You just have to respect it and to be there for the person and to listen to them, because them coming out to you is not about you. And when you start to, say, well, I don't identify with that, or I don't believe in that, you're making it about yourself, and you're not making it about the person who felt comfortable enough to come to you, of all people, and disclose that information to you. So I feel like that coming out process is a sacred process, and you should actually be honored that that person felt comfortable enough to come to you to for that process.
Right. And understanding that coming out process has been going on a long time before they tell you. So they have been in situations where maybe their family members didn't know, and they were saying things that were anti-gay or LGBTQ, and that person was listening to that and being hurt by that. So they have been going through this process of coming out long before they tell you. So I agree that the fact that they are willing to tell you that is a privilege, even to hear it.
Yes.
So how do we as a community go about creating safe spaces? And how do you all do that in therapy sessions? And then think about how does the community do it as a whole?
Well,
I think going back to what she said, like having the gender neutral bathrooms, not having, women's bathroom, men's bathroom, just saying people or humans. And also, allowing spaces to have a single bathroom, because, if I am on the spectrum, maybe I still don't feel comfortable using an all male, quote unquote, bathroom or all female bathroom. I feel comfortable going to a restaurant where it's just one stall. So having that in place, I feel like is super duper important.
And even in our documentation, in our paperwork, allowing space for that. I just got an email from a coworker today, and she said that the State Department is now allowing X for gender. So even on, that's a huge step forward. So just even doing things like that to kind of make it more inclusive is important.
Yeah, because I know when we do document in the notes section, like on the front page, I put, this client would like to be referred to as, and then their preferred name, and then, if they identify as a pronoun that they weren't assigned at birth, then I put that pronoun in there so that anybody who's looking at their chart knows, okay, this is this person's name and this is this person's pronoun, so that they can, be respectful and inclusive when they're speaking about that person or speaking to that person.
And the whole purpose for one of the main purposes for doing that, the underlying purpose is to make that person feel safe, to make them feel accepted, so that they don't have to go to end up having mental health issues as a result of not feeling safe and not being heard. Because they're walking in a world where people are always putting them down, often they're putting them down. So they're sort of navigating that. But to find a place where they can be safe and not have to do that is very important.
Yeah, and you're basically just validating their personhood. You're validating that they exist, that they matter, that they are important, just like you would want to feel in any space, in any room.
Right. Basic human respect. That could be the starting place for having conversations of acceptance and inclusion.
What about microaggressions? Is that an issue when we talk about the LGBTQ community?
So for those who might not know what microaggressions are, those are just insults, or they may say something to like, so are you the man or the woman in this? Or you don't look like a gay person. Those kinds of things that might come across as not harmful, but they can be harmful to that person because you are diminishing their existence and you are minimizing their relationship and trying to put them in a box, so to speak. So yes, microaggressions can be very, very hurtful.
Yes, I mean, and that's with anything, like with race, Like, I'm pretty sure, like, as a Black woman, you know, I've been told, like, oh, you're cute for a Black girl. Like, it's the same thing with pronouns and with gender. Like, they don't like it, I don't like it, just don't do it.
Right.
So we got another question that says, it feels like politically correct terms change often. How can I stay up to date on the changes?
You are absolutely right. They do change often. And I encourage people to continue to educate themselves, do some research around it, and just always be open and willing to learn more about it. Because as the purpose for the language evolving over time is helping people to feel like they have a place, so that I don't fit in this box of straight or gay. So where can I fit in? You know, how can I be identified for who I am on this continuum? So continuing to learn and be willing to research it is important.
Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite like little quotes is, "Don't judge, be curious." If we stay curious and we're always asking people questions, whether that be family members, friends, like she said, doing your own research, you know, there's tons of information out there for you to read, for you to watch. So yeah, that's how you can be an advocate. That's how you can stay up to date.
And like I said earlier, being aware of your own biases. So I've used to do the trainings here, new employee orientation, and I had one man say, "Why we have to have all of this stuff? You know, why can't it just be man, woman, male, female?" And I had to help him understand that if it's not your experience, then it's easy to minimize it. It's easier to discount. So how can you flip that around and be willing and open to other people's experiences? And that's what's important.
How do you feel like people can be better allies to the LGBTQ community?
Well, one of the things is, like you were saying earlier, if you're in the presence of someone who is putting people down, being willing to speak up, being willing to maybe advocate for their rights publicly, maybe going to some marches, just being willing to support them.
Yeah, for sure. Even if, you know, even if you're sitting at the family dinner table and nobody in your family even identifies as an LGBTQIA plus on that spectrum, and one of your family members says something, speaking up in those spaces as well. Like, you don't have to just speak up in the presence of people who are on that spectrum, speaking up in all spaces.
Yeah, just not allowing it to happen in front of you. Is important.
What do you all believe are the mental emotional benefits of creating safe spaces, not just for the LGBTQ community, but for all of us?
I think that it's important to create safe space so that people can thrive and they can continue to grow and be their own individual selves and have that authenticity. That's really important for building positive mental health. Yeah. So not whether you're on the LGBTQ or whether you're cisgender, everyone having that human experience of acceptance is important, and creating that safe space so that you come in to see me in my office, whoever you walk in as on that spectrum of LGBT, that spectrum, or whether you're straight, however you identify, you're going to be welcome and create that safe space. And that's going to help them to feel better mentally.
Yeah. And I think like something that we do at the drop-in center, like, you know, we treat everyone with respect. We treat everyone the same. There's no favoritism based upon gender identity, sexual orientation, or anything like that. And like before the last question, like when we see something, we say something, basically, and we educate the young people who may not know certain things so that we can create that safe space. Because if another issue arose that maybe another person identified with, you would want us to speak up for you. And so we're speaking up for everybody.
Yeah.
What would you all say in closing today is the biggest issue facing us not being in an inclusive society? And what would you say to people who may not feel like they're ready to accept members of the LGBTQ community?
Well, I would say, even if you don't accept members of this community, there's always the opportunity for basic human respect. Even if you don't agree, You can always treat people with respect. And doing that, you will prevent harm over time. So
Yeah. And I think like treating people with respect doesn't take anything away from you. It takes nothing of you to call somebody by a pronoun that they want to be called or by a name that they want to be called. It takes nothing away from you. You don't have to pay for it. It's free and it makes people feel good.
Yeah.
It makes people feel like they matter and like they're being respected.
Yeah.
And you want the same thing for yourself. So yeah.
And one of the things to think about that could help you with that is maybe thinking about walking in their shoes for a minute. What would it be like to be in a LGBTQ plus plus? What would that be like if I had to walk in that every day? And you may get some insight from that, and it may help you to be more respectful of other people.
Yeah.
If you had to say something to a member of the LGBTQ community who's struggling with their mental health right now, what would it be?
I would say seek help and ask for help and surround yourself around people who are going to be supportive of you. It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. I would say you're not alone. There are a lot of people who are going through the same things that you're going through, and there are a lot of different organizations, Chris 180 being one of them, where you can get that help that you need, get that community support that you need.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for a powerful conversation. Susan, in one of our comments, talked about how important it is to create those safe spaces, and both Keisha and Rita do that every day here at Chris 180. If you are a member of the LGBTQ community, please know that for 40 years, Chris 180 has been proud to celebrate and serve the LGBTQ community in Georgia and really across Metro Atlanta. So if you need assistance to talk about your mental health, please reach out to us at Chris 180. We're happy to help. You can reach out by calling our care team here at our front office or by going to chris180.org. We hope that you have a wonderful Halloween weekend. And in fact, this weekend coming up right here at Chris 180 on Saturday, October 30th, we have a special event for the whole family. It's Halloween Family Fun Day. And you can come to our main office right here on Fayetteville Road in East Atlanta from 10 to 2 and find trunk or treats, haunted tents, and all kinds of family fun in a safe environment. You can also receive COVID-19 vaccinations. We hope that you will plan to join us. Thank you each for being here this afternoon to be a part of this really important conversation. We'd love for you to share this link via Facebook or Instagram with people in your networks who might need to hear a little encouragement, and that we can all build safer communities for each other. Have a great weekend.